Welcome you all to the Lunchtime Seminar Series in collaboration with the Institute for Gender Development Studies. I am Deborah, the Outreach and Research Person at the Institute. And today, thankfully, Mr. Jawad Aslam has agreed to talk to us a bit on the MDG4. I would now I'll let Tammy introduce him. She's now told me she needs to introduce him. So I'll let Tammy introduce Mr. Aslam to us, and then we hear what he has to say.
Thank you very much, Deborah. And yes, welcome to those of you who are not from your house. Thanks for coming. I know it is midweek, mid-exams, mid-audit. Mid-audit. Okay, well, for those of you who are in audit, mid-audit. So thank you very much for coming. We're continuing and really coming to the end of the gender lecture series. While this is MDG4, we're actually on the 7th lecture, and we're having the final lecture next week Friday. So we hope to see you all here again next week Friday. But we've been really looking forward to this UNICEF lecture on reducing child mortality. And I think we have a very eminent person in Jawad to deliver the lecture. Jawad is the Social and Economic Policy Specialist with UNICEF, the UNICEF Office for the Eastern Caribbean area. And he specializes in social policy and development, social protection, child poverty, and child protection policy and planning. His earlier professional work experience was, of course, with UNICEF, as well as the UN High Commission for Refugees, Save the Children, and several national NGOs in Macedonia, Egypt, Southern Sudan, the United States, as well as his homeland of Pakistan. Jawad earned his master's degree in social policy and development from LSE, London School of Economics and Political Sciences in England, one of my old stomping grounds. And he also holds a postgraduate diploma in children, youth and development from the Institute of Social Studies in The Hague, Netherlands. And we are very happy to have Jawad here with us all the way from Pakistan and Trinidad Tobago. So Jawad, we look forward to your presentation, and both for the members of the public who are here, as well as the UN staff who are here, really seeing how MDG4 and the impact on gender on achieving this as we move to 2050. So the floor is yours.
Thank you, Deborah, and thank you, Tammy, for introduction and welcome. And let me welcome everyone again to UN House and to lecture on MDG4, reducing child mortality. When my head of office in Barbados in UNICEF on request of Tammy and IGDS request to UNICEF to make a presentation on this topic, and she asked me to do so, my immediate reaction was why? And she said, because there is a child in it and we have to speak about it. And believe me, in my life, I never thought that I would talk ever about child mortality in my life. I was always afraid of technical terms from medical side and health background. So I have tried to put up some ideas for discussion today. The lens I have taken is more talking about inequalities among children and women and how more equity-focused approaches can help us to achieve this. I want to thank IGDS and the Gender Team Group for organizing this seminar series. Just before starting the presentation, a brief introduction of UNICEF program in the region. We are working in 12 countries, being based in Barbados. Our office is called Office for the Eastern Caribbean area. And we cover 12 countries. We have a small presence here in Trinidad. My myself, my colleague Joel, who is also here, Marlon, and then we have a very special presence in the crowd today. That is our monitoring and evaluation specialist from Barbados. So he has come all the way to help me. Yeah, to monitor how the, yeah. And so that's the team. I will speak around half an hour to 45 minutes, and then we will open the forum for discussion. And I repeat, for discussion, not for questions. Okay, so I will talk about 5 things today, you know. One, very briefly, what MDG4 is. I'm not touching base on MDGs itself, but what MDG4 is, what is under 5 mortality rate, and what are the approximate causes of this particular MDG. Then I want to put in a global perspective in front of you, what is happening globally. Is it a success story, and what are the underlying or growing inequalities within this success story of development world? That is the reducing child mortality. Then I will explain some of the data from the Eastern Caribbean region, some of the countries, what is happening there. And then we will see a little bit on Trinidad and Tobago, where we are sitting today, that how it fits into this country and what the country position is. So in conclusion, I will draw that there is a lot has been achieved, a lot has been achieved on reducing child mortality in the world, but still we are lacking, and in order to achieve what is not being achieved yet, we need equity-focused approaches to reach that. And then we will open for the discussion. So just what we talk about MDG4, reduced child mortality, what it means in the MDG language is that by 2/3, between 1990 and 2015, the mortality rate of children under 5, means whatever rate in 1990 was, every country, every region, as a world whole, we will strive to reduce it to 2/3. Means if it is 100, we will try to reduce by 67%. There are 3 broader dimensions in it. One is under 5 mortality. Second is infant mortality, right? The third is the proportion of 1-year-old children immunized against measles. My presentation, I deliberately has kept it in order to make a case, is very much focused on under 5 mortality. I will little bit touch base on infant mortality and other dimensions, but the data I have used on MDG, this particular group, is on under 5 mortality. Okay, this is from where we started, what the overall picture when it started and where we are today. So if we see some of the countries, some of the regions, at the lowest level you can see the world where we have been at 99 per 1,000 births, and then we have reached to, the target was to reach to 29 by 2015, in 25 years. That is the lowest, right? And then if you see the developing region versus developed region, there was a big difference. There was 15 to 97. So we started at 97, where majority of the Eastern Caribbean countries fall, the developing countries, and then the target was to come to 32. But if you further come down and come in the region, which was Latin America and the Caribbean, which started from a very good footing at that time as compared to many other regions, it was 54, and the objective was to, or still is to, reach 18. And you can see there is a 50%, 57% decline. We are on track. There are good average annual rate reduction between 1920 and 2010, 2.7. So the overall picture is very, very good. Just before going that what it means, what we are talking is, I think more than me, I can expect that all of you know the definition. So we are talking about dying between birth and exactly 5 years of age, expressed per 1,000 live births. in more common or anecdotal or more everyday language, we are talking about child deaths per 1,000 live births. Right? That's what we are talking about. It's a very important indicator. What in our UNICEF language we say indispensable gauge of child health. There are three particular reasons for it. The first one is that it measures in outcomes than inputs. Means we are not talking towards the process, we are talking about the end. For example, we are not talking about per capita calorie availability to children in a country. That is a means. We are not talking about number of doctors in any country per 1,000, for example. But we are talking about all these things together, what at the end, if we see the child mortality, right, that is the outcome. So that is the one reason. And second is it gives a wide variety of inputs. It's not about, for example, one particular indicator we are talking about. We are talking about nutrition, we are talking about health knowledge of mother, we are talking about level of immunization in a country, we are talking about availability of material and child health services, we are talking about income and food availability in that country, safe drinking water, sanitation, socio-economic conditions. So it's really an important development indicator which cross-cuts availability of number of development services in any country. And the last part, which is it does not become falsy of average, you know. For example, if you talk about GNI in any country, we compare rich and poor and then we say that, okay, this country is around $20,000 for example, Trinidad, right? So it gives a false figure. There are huge number of disparity between rich and poor. For example, rich are earning more than $100,000 and then we have a huge population which is earning $2 or $5 and then we mix them and we give one average. So it's not about that. It helps to bring rich and poor into one indicator in a country context, and rich cannot cheat poor on this one particularly. That's the important dimension of this indicator. Okay, now what are the causes which is happening? If you see broadly, you will see majority of them are manageable in health sector. We are not talking about something which is unmanageable. So it's really that something we can do, right? And still nations, leaders and countries are not able to achieve it. So we are talking about pneumonia, malaria, diarrheal diseases, neonatal severe infections, preterm birth. So basically some of the very diseases or medical or health issues which number of countries have already managed in their context is the causes of the child deaths under 5. Now a few broader things in it. Undernutrition is implicated in up to 50% of all deaths of under 5. So the nutrition aspect, if it's covered, a large number of lives will be saved. Then 40% of all the deaths in under 5 mortality is in neonatal period, first month of life. That is very important dimension. And then 26% of all neonatal deaths under 5, which is like 10% of the all under 5 mortality rate, is caused by severe infections. And again, I have given some of the names from the data. Now from here I can show you trends in the data under 5 mortality rate from 1990 to 2009. So what we see here, we have the world at the lowest level, starting from 89, we are coming to 60 in 2009, it is 19 years. And then developing countries starting from 99 in 90, and then we are now at 66. Right? And if you see Latin America and Caribbean, we are starting from 52 and coming to 23, right? Few regions now stand out in it. One, the first one, sub-Saharan Africa, It started with a big problem and it still remains a big problem. We have South Asia. It still remains, it started with a big problem, but it still remains the big problem. There are 5 countries which are actually more than 80% of the whole problem. And I come from one of them. India, Pakistan, Nigeria, Democratic Republic of Congo, and what else? The last one.
Another one in Central Africa.
Yeah, there are 5 countries which are major issue at this moment. There are, I'm not going to that extent, but there are very interesting dimensions coming out of this data. For example, we see the sub-Saharan Africa is a problem. There are a number of countries who are there not achieving it. But still there are 4 or 5 countries who have managed it. So that gives us that this is not something we can say, okay, this is an area with the geography or the specific political, social problems and they cannot do this. But no, countries within that area are doing it, are managing it. Now, what is the issues which I want to highlight with you is inequalities within this data or within this whole debate. Now, this is UNICEF analysis which we produced last year, and in order to project our new approach, which I am presenting to you people also, which is equity, that there are growing inequalities within countries, and in the national data, in the national scale or regional scale, that is masked. They are hidden. For example, now we have on the lower side we have the 2 decreasing mortality and we have increasing mortality, which is in percentage change in under 5 mortality rate in percentage, and then we have inequality. We have the decreasing side and then we have the increasing side. So now the important part which I wanted to, which UNICEF is highlighting, is that there are a number of countries with decreasing mortality rate, but there are increasing inequalities in those countries. The number of those countries who are achieving it, inequalities are rising despite decrease in this. And similarly, a large number is with the countries with the decreasing, but with the decreasing inequalities. I mean, this is the ideal game, that the inequalities are reducing and under mortality is reducing. But what we see from our data, that number of countries, though mortality is decreasing, but inequalities in that countries are increasing. Now what it means is, if you look at this data coming from Nigeria, for example, there is a richest quantile, wealth, and there is a poor quantile, poorest quantile. And these are the causes with the deaths, right? Now the interesting part is, if you see neonatal, the richest 26.5 per 1,000 deaths. But if you see poor country, the poor portion of that society, which is the lowest quantile, you see 40 out of 1,000 deaths, right? 1,000 births, sorry. Similarly is the situation with diarrhea, similarly is situation with malaria, similarly is situation with, for example, pneumonia, right? So that is the dimension, that one particular disease in one particular country with 2 socio-economic conditions, there are different numbers. So that's what our focus at this moment is. Now there is another example. The poorest women are substantially less likely than the richest women to deliver with the assistance of a doctor, nurse or midwife. Right? So what we see here, different regions, we see again 5 quantiles from richest to the poor, and what we see that the percentage of births attended by skilled health personnel is very good for the rich group and very low for the poor. I mean, just to give you an example, in this country, for example, the percentage of births attended by skilled health personnel, in rich out of every 100, 98% are getting that. But then we see 24% are only getting for poorer groups. So that is the key dimensions. Now the same is the case here in this particular analysis. We have wealth, we have residence, and we have mother education. And what we are saying that those who are from the poorer households, those who are without mother education, and the last one with the rural and urban divide, we see disparities in it. We have the richest again 62, we have the poorest 121, again double. If you see rural and urban divide, you see rural are at the disadvantage and the urban are on the advantage. And if you see mother education, no mother education, higher rate. Moderate primary education, little less. And if there is no education, we are very low. So that puts this indicator into broader development debate. Now this is a country, now what I have talked about you, I wanted to show you in a country context. This is a country in the region, Brazil. At this moment, an emerging economy. Everybody wants to talk about Brazil or India, right? But what lies in between? If you see under mortality rate for this country, you see whole country is green. Means the whole country average, a whole country situation is very good. UN is very happy. World leaders are very happy. Labor, government, Mrs. Lula is very happy. Right? But now I want to show you what is inside it. What our analysis tells, what is inside, underlying this big country is this. If you look at it at the state level, right, the color changes. It was green. Red is the lowest number. Red is the alarming situation actually. Right? So 40% country becomes red. If you look at state data, if you forget national and you say, okay, we want to see what is happening in each state, you will say the south of it, very good. You see red on the north, and then again on the other side, west side, you see red. You see how things change. But now the interesting part is this. If you go within municipalities, dynamics change. You see the whole red becomes complex. There are so many, the whole green, sorry, the side which was very good, even at the state level, at the municipal level, it becomes complex. So that is the map of a country which I show you in an overall picture. It is very good, but as you keep going down with under 5 mortality rate, you will see this is the national level situation. So that's what UNICEF argument at this moment is, that there is need to go beyond national averages for under 5 mortality rate if we want to achieve what we have missed so far. So far, what conclusion on this part I would like to make? 2/3 of the countries that have made strong progress in reducing the under 5 mortality rates has shown worsening inequalities since 1990. Gaps between better off and worse off have increased. Now, what this suggests that the delivery, financing, use of essential services for children favor the better off. That's why we are not achieving what we have to achieve. Now we come to Eastern Caribbean, how we started and where we are. And it is very interesting, I think, for us all to see, being from the region and working in the region. And so what we can see that Dominica, and then all these countries, Guyana, Jamaica, St. Kitts, St. Lucia, St. Vincent and Grenadines, and then Trinidad and Tobago, almost started on the same footing. Yes, Guyana and Trinidad was, Guyana and St. Vincent and Grenadines was very bad, right? But others were almost somewhere between near 60, up and down. And this information, by the way, is from 1970 to 2010. So it covers span of 40 years. But what has happened now? If we go to the last one, this is 2010. So you see, the one which started worst is here, around 20%. The one another started very worst is between somewhere around 30, you can say, right? Trinidad is here. But some countries did very good, for example, St. Kitts. Dominica did pretty good, right? But there is another country which we should keep an eye, that is Barbados, which started very good as compared to other countries, went down good, but still not there. But what happened in last 2-3 years, they are bouncing back. So this is the situation in last 40 years in the region. And this the same 5 countries from the same information, but starting from 1960, because for some other countries the data for 60 was not there. So here you can see everybody started in 1960. Trinidad started on the best footing. The innings started on a very good. Bowlers and batsmen were very okay, right? Others were a little bad. Up. See, this one is Dominica, very high. Okay. Now, across the next 50 years, we see they are coming down, and we see it started at the best innings, which is like West Indies cricket now. So it is up now. Trinidad is upper than many other countries who started very low as compared to Trinidad and Tobago, right? But now I have not put that information here just to keep our focus on under 5 mortality rate. Interesting part would be to see the national incomes, resources, whether these countries, for example, Dominica has resources as compared to Trinidad or Tobago. Right? So that is another interesting dimension to it. So that is the trends in the region. And now this is the Trinidad in last 50 years. You see there was good start here till here, 1980s and 90. You see there is a reduction. But in last 30 years, the struggle is really tight now. There is no substantial reduction. There is reduction, but it is really going on 1, 2. So the graph is really getting straight now, right? And that is the whole argument. Reaching the unreached means that you have reached populations, but there are few who have not been reached. And that's what the whole equity focus is, that if you want to achieve this, you have to get back and make a rethinking. Whatever you are doing is very good, that will maintain status quo. But if you want to achieve the ultimate objective, you have to think with the equity focus. Now here I wanted to use some of the latest data which our colleagues at UNDP, using some of the UNICEF data, has produced very good work. So this is Trinidad and Tobago, population of households where a child died. That shows that percentage of a household in any administrative area where one child or more than one child have died under 5. Okay? Now here the interesting dimensions, some of the things which I wanted to highlight is Mearo, Rio Claro, Arima, Sandy Grande, right? And then, yeah, Port of Spain also, which is with the highest. So these are the 4 areas you see that the bigger number, percentage is coming from these areas, right? So as a policymakers, it's very clear that this is going to be which side, east or west? Which side of the country we are talking about? East. So the policymakers has to shift their focus of investment, but it is difficult because a major bunch of population lives here. But that's what the whole argument of equity is, that you cannot continue with traditional wisdoms. If you will continue with the traditional wisdoms, you will keep stuck here. So if in order to make this going down, you have to rethink with the different wisdom which is going to those areas where the problem lies. Now, that's what I argued earlier in the whole Caribbean context, but that's what here in Trinidad context you can see. This is your average national for whole country, right? It is in PPP form and it is household income per capita. The richest area we know San Fernando, and we know what is the richest areas, 3%. Only 3% households are facing a child death in that region because they are very rich. Did you see?
Yes.
Now here is at Tobago, here is Mayaro, and similarly if you see Sandy Grande and yeah. So the areas I was talking about is with the lowest income in the national context. So that reflects that there is need of rethinking of infrastructural investment, for example, so that people income rises in those areas. There is need to put more money into health systems into those particular areas, right? Because the rich are always free to access health care, but the poor are always in need of state intervening and making sure that the health services are reaching to these groups. Yeah, so that's the second part or third part, you can say, Eastern Caribbean and what is happening in Trinidad and Tobago also. So now, before concluding, what are the things I wanted to highlight in this whole discussion? Many children are not reached by services, suffering multiple deprivations which compound one another, for example, poor nutrition, education, or protection, or many other, have limited opportunities for development. Now this all situation results in high mortality, malnutrition, which I told you is like the major reason of under 5 mortality, illiteracy in any particular segment of society, and then the whole intergenerational cycle of poverty where one particular group or one particular race or one particular ethnicity keeps struggling with that particular poverty. Now, what our argument is at Equity in handling under 5 mortality rate is that these inequalities are happening because of geographical location, which is very much, you can see with your own eyes with the data, is the case in Trinidad and Tobago. East and West, there are questions about income. There are one particular segment of society which have income and have access to services, but then those who do not have, you can see under 5 mortality in that particular group is low. There are racial, ethnic, religious and other cultural affiliations which sometimes are the causes of under 5 mortality or any other major developmental issues. This remains a question of further research to see if these particular administrative areas represent one particular race, represent one particular ethnic group, or represent one particular religious group, and to see that if these particular racial or ethnic or religious groups are not being catered by the state investment. Caste and minority status, it could be one reason. Disability could be one reason. It would be very interesting to see in Trinidad and Tobago where are the disabled people and where are in this particular map, how we see them. And then last but very important, the question of gender. But all these critical information, if you look at your country's Human Development Report, which thanks to Nana who shared with me, it's more like a internal document, but it's available with the ministries. If you see that analysis, you see only things at the overall average level. Things are here. Means okay, country has under mortality rate, green. You get the point?
Yeah.
So there is a reason to do further research, investigation and analysis to go down and find out what are the multiple causes within the society for this particular situation. Why the equation, why the graph of Trinidad and Tobago for last number of years is not going down? What are the pressures? What are the strategic challenges to push it down? And our argument, UNICEF, is that this can happen if you look at it with the equity focus. Now, few of the broader things before summarizing, before concluding and opening for discussion. The conventional wisdom, what UNICEF believe is, it is too costly and too difficult to go into the poorest, hard-to-reach communities. If you go to ministries, if you go to planners, they will say, my God, some people are living in the mountains, how we would ensure to reach them? Or it's so difficult for law and order, for services to be in some of the crime hit areas. Right? This is the conventional wisdom. But what UNICEF modeling says, that because the needs are the greatest among the unreached, and innovative, efficient ways exist to reach them, and the benefits of concentrating on them can outweigh the additional costs. Means if you are going to achieve under 5 mortality rate, which is a target for Trinidad and Tobago, is by the way 12 in next 3 years, and at this moment it is somewhere 27. So you have to reach to level of 12 or 18, I think it's in between these two. Yeah. So our approach is that if you want to do it, there is a need to come with innovative ways to reach these unreached communities, because otherwise they will be hidden in the national aggregates. So go to where the greatest needs are concentrated. We can be more cost effective and we can get faster results overall. It improves, this approach of reaching the unreached improves results on investment, averting many more child deaths. We, in our analysis, we believe, but this is not something for Trinidad or Tobago or Eastern Caribbean, but UNICEF believes with a strong financial and administrative data analysis that if we use equity focused approach and if we invest 1 million investment into reducing under 5 deaths in low incomes, high mortality country would avert an estimated 60% more deaths than the current approach. So if we change the approach, instead of investing which are areas always reachable by the poor, by the rich, and with good services, and we focus where services are not reaching, and if we put $1 million in that approach, we believe that we can save 60%. What is the children are dying now, we can save 60% of them. Because of natural burdens of disease, ill health and malnutrition are concentrated in the most excluded and deprived child populations. Providing these children with essential services can accelerate progress towards the health-related MDGs and reduce disparities within nations. What our focus of equity approach, 3 dimensions, we propose to work on social factors, on social norms, behaviors, practices that impede access to services or which fuel discrimination and deprivation in any one particular society or state. We promote services and systems, including for protection, that are not reaching those who are most in need. This requires analyzing and removing the barriers to access and underlying system constraints. That's what I highlighted already, that there is need of more research and analysis to reach these particular administrative areas in Trinidad and Tobago. There are questions of governance, accountability, policy, legislative and budgetary factors that effectively disadvantage or exclude children, families and groups. That can happen. For example, there are very good health indicators in this country, but as I showed to you, there is need to go from averages to more regional and within gender and ethnicities to see what is happening. There is a need to track budgets every year, that whether these budgets are reaching here or these budgets are somewhere where already indicators are good. So I will stop here and I will thank you all, and they will open the forum not for questions but for discussion. Thank you very much.